the mic to you. We'll wait for your green light, Dr. Zaina.
تفضل دكتور. تفضل دكتور أسامة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Professor Ismail, I would like to officially welcome you at IVPN. Thank you for sparing a time on a busy weekend away from the family commitment to present to us your experience on precision health to the rest of the IVPN community. We are so excited and honored to welcome you, Professor Ismail, as a distinguished speaker and expert in the field. I will leave the moderation to Dr. Zaina, but it's important to highlight that, today we have in front of us 25 years of rich experience with a huge background in research, in education, in clinical diagnostics, in consultancy and management. Your impressive career, Professor Ismail, also includes a work at the Ludwig, as I can see in your bio, for cancer research in the UK, on top of advisory roles in the regional and international pharma and biotech companies. So on behalf of all IVPNeers, I would like to welcome you. And I will leave the stage now to Dr. Zaina to further highlight on your mashallah, amazing bio. Dr. Zaina, I will leave the mic and screen to you.
Thank you, Dr. Osama. So welcome again, Dr. Ismail. Dr. Said Ismail holds a PhD from the University of Oxford and a master's degree from the University College London. His experience extends over 25 years, as Dr. Osama highlighted, and involves research, education, mashallah, clinical diagnostic, consultancy, and management, including work in at the Ludwig Institute of Cancer Research at UCL and at the UK. Dr. Ismail also has had advisory roles at regional and international pharma and biotech companies, and a professor and director at the University of Jordan Medical School and the Clinical Genetic Diagnostic Laboratory at the University Hospital. In 2015, Dr. Ismail joined Qatar Foundation as the first full-time employee of the amazing Qatar Genome Project, and helped building a team to see the project grow into one of the largest population genomic initiatives in the region and in the world, indeed, shedding light on the genetic makeup of Qataris, as well as over 400 million genomically underrepresented Arabs. So Dr. Said also holds a position of the adjunct professor at both Hamad bin Khalifa University and Qatar University, and is a board member of Shuman Research Fund in Jordan, as well as Transplant Immunology Research Center for Excellence at Koç University, Istanbul, Turkey. He is also the first president and co-founder of the International Society of Aptamer Nanotechnology and an editorial board of multiple international journals. Dr. Ismail won, mashallah, several awards, including Said Foundation Prize for Young Arab Researchers in the UK in 2001, Ali Mango Award for Distinguished Jordanian Researchers in 2012, and the Shuman Award for Arab Researchers in Biomedical Sciences in 2013. Dr. Ismail has special interest in promoting research among young Arab students, and I think this is where we find common grounds between IVPN and Dr. Ismail's achievements. He launched one of the largest efforts to enhance the Arabic medical and scientific content on the internet, the Bil Arabi initiative. And also he's a board member of the Phi Science Institute, which aims to encourage research among Arab youth. So with all this amazing achievements, we are very glad to have you here with us today. And I want to leave now the floor for you to tell us about Precision Health Qatar's journey from genomes to implementation. Thank you again, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zeina and Dr. Osama, for the very kind invitation. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. And inshallah, in the next almost 40 minutes, I'll be giving you some information about our journey during the last almost decade in Qatar here to launch this very ambitious project. I think you do see my slides here, correct?
Yes.
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 Okay. So very quickly, I will be telling you about how we moved from a vision into implementation. We are now called the QBHI, Qatar Precision Health Institute, which is basically recently announced a few months ago only, which is the merger, full official merger of Qatar Biobank and Qatar Genome. This QBHI basically will be the focal point for all national efforts for the country to be a hub for precision health. We will, whether it's support, whether it's sequencing, whether it's policies, whether it's human capacity building, and so many other things. This QBHI is basically the signaling one important thing over what we've used to be doing in the last decade, which is producing a lot of data, making it available for researchers, empowering discoveries, and now moving into translating those discoveries into clinically impactful initiatives, as you will see, inshallah, in the next few slides. So our role is basically central here between healthcare providers, you name it, community. We have 45,000 individuals donating samples to us. So this is our huge community, and we are going to recruit even more. We work with international partners, governmental authorities, funding agencies, researchers, academia, industry, and education. As you will see, we play that role of an enabler, national enabler. So it's not just sequencing genomes. It's way more than that, as I will show you in a minute. When it comes to genomes, yes, the vision was announced end of 2013. First genome sequenced around mid 2015. We have now sequenced around 45,000 whole genomes, and we're heading, inshallah, towards 1,000 100,000 genomes. Why do we think what we do here is unique? Because we represent an underrepresented population, not only Qataris, but Qataris and Arabs in the region. We do not sequence in vacuum. We sequence individuals who are phenotyped very comprehensively, very deeply. They call it deep phenotyping, as opposed to light phenotyping. We do a lot from 66 blood tests all the way to whole body MRI, including ECGs, retinal imaging, of course, medical history, and so many other things. So each donor or participant spends 3 hours at the biobank, where he gives a lot of biological samples, healthcare related information, and so many other things, including a lot of imaging, all the way, as I said, to whole body MRI. And then we sequence the whole genome. So there are a lot of possibilities, and to do all sorts of associations between the genotypic and the phenotypic data. And we also have started a couple of years ago establishing connections to their clinical records. So when they are outside the biobank and they are patients in the healthcare system within Qatar, we can also track them and get their clinical data and add it to the wealth of data that we do. What's unique also about us is that we don't only do whole genome, we do multi-omics for a good subset of the population that we've collected. And another thing that is here works for our advantage is that in a small country with a good healthcare system, you can move more swiftly from research to implementation. These are some of the other multi-omics we do. So we do mainly genomics, but for a subset of the data, we do proteomics, metabolomics, microbiomics, epigenomics, and transcriptomics. And we are increasing systematically the number of samples which have multi-omics data and making it available to the research community. This is our biobank, as I said, is the place where deep phenotyping takes place. As I said, 3 hours each individual stays there, and these are the source of some of the clinical data, phenotypic data being collected there. And at the end, we get that DNA sample and send it for whole genome sequencing. Once again, we are in a genomically underrepresented part of the world. And as I always say, no one can claim that they understand the human genetic code by only studying people from Western Europe and North America. This is not a representative sample. 90% of genomes sequenced worldwide, 80 to 90% of that are basically for people of European ancestry. And you can immediately tell that we did not actually, as they say, crack the genetic code. We have to get data from other parts of the world to be able to say that we did understand or solve that puzzle. So our region, the Arab world, the Middle East, is largely underrepresented, as is the case with big parts of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. So when we started doing that, we knew that at one stage we will not only be sequencing people, Qataris, but we will be sequencing other Arabs. And we call them long-term residents. Anybody who stayed 15 years in Qatar or more is eligible to be enrolled in our program. And the vast majority of those are of Arab origins. So we have now thousands and thousands of genomes to people from all sorts of Middle Eastern countries, Yemen, Iraq, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Masr, and North Africa. We have a good collection, and inshallah, end of the year, we will make this available to the research community as well, in addition to the 30,000 genomes we have for Qataris. And genetics in this part of the world is so important. We Arabs stay at the middle, at the heart of the old world. And our countries are among the most ancient inhabited parts of this globe. I mean, if life started somewhere across Bab el-Mandab, in Ethiopia, some say in Yemen, it started very close to where we are. And people, when they first migrated out of Africa, they went to the Arabian Peninsula and they stayed for a long time. They stayed there, and then they traveled to all 4 corners of this world. So genetics from this part of the world will resonate not only for the 400 million inhabitants of this part of the world, but even beyond that. And this was recognized by this Nature paper that was celebrating 20 years from the first human genome. If you see, the first human genome was almost published, the first draft, or almost the final draft in 2003. And since then, according to this paper in 2023, they said that we were at Qatar Genome one of the most important milestones in those 20 years. Why is that? I think it's because those who wrote this paper, they realized the importance of diversity. I mean, as I said times and times again, you have to have representative samples from all around the world. And you can see one other important note here. If you see the other programs, it was in 2014 and 2015 when most of the large-scale genome projects were launched, whether it's Genome Denmark, Genomics England, the American program, it's called All of Us, TopMed, Australian Genomics, Genome Asia, and Singapore. All of them were launched in 2014, 2015. Why then? Well, it's because of the technology. It's then when the technology started to become very affordable And people started to talk about the $1,000 genome. Before that, I mean, the first human genome draft that was announced in 2003, I think the cost was in the billions. So, and I think the project lasted 10 years. And you can easily say that by that time, from billions to $1,000, that's striking. And from 10 years to, I would say now, one day, you can get the whole genome done and interpreted in some cases. This is a very unprecedented evolution of the sequencing technology that made the likelihood of launching such national programs possible. And the cost keeps going down, and now people are talking about the $200, $300 genome, and soon I won't be surprised if it's $100. And if you consider that a lot of the single gene diagnostic assays in laboratories now do cost actually more than $100, this is again very, very, very amazing. And that whole genome now is approaching the cost of one single mutation or single gene assay. But of course, sequencing is one thing, interpreting the data is another thing, and that remains the bottleneck. So what we've done in the past 10 years resonated very well. This publication came out a few months ago from some Arab researchers. They said basically summary of this is that what we call the genome-wide association studies. These are very interesting studies that are now very powerful in identifying gene associations to different all sorts of diseases and other traits. They analyze the whole genome data and compare it to, and try to find associations with disease or other phenotypes. 96% of GWAS, of individuals enrolled in GWAS studies came from Qatar. 3.8 were from the rest of the Arab world. That this paper here again also puts Qatar as the #1 when it comes to the medical research output per person. So what I'm trying to say here is that this investment paid off, one, and second, over a decade, it took a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of dedication, but again, it shows that we are proudly delivering of what we've said at the beginning, is that we will try as much as we can to represent not only Qatar, but the whole region. This again was celebrated by this paper in Nature Genetics. So back to our mandate, our vision. As I said in the beginning, it's not just about sequencing. It's a vision when we first launched it called a strategy built on 7 pillars. While we are doing the sequencing, we established a biobank. While doing the genome sequencing, we were enhancing the genomic infrastructure. We were building capacities. We were helping the government to draft policies and regulations. We were encouraging genomic research. We were engaged in clinical implementation. We were working on all sorts of things, trying to be as comprehensive as possible. On the policies and regulations and ethics, these are some of the founding publications that will pave the way and help the regulators to put the future regulations that will regulate the practice of precision health. Lately, for example, we have also helped in the production of this one. This is even targeting healthcare and AI. So how would you regulate the use of AI in healthcare? So we take always, this is one pillar of our work, help produce guiding regulations and policies to help regulators regulate the practice in the future, anything around precision health. We also have so many education programs that span all sorts of age groups. We have things like comics and DNA museum tours for young students. In middle and high school, we have some internships. We have also produced a mobile game. I'll show you that in a bit. We also have postgraduate level initiatives to encourage students to pursue a career in genomics and bioinformatics and other related disciplines, because you need a lot of those in the next, I don't know how many decades, for the country to be a hub in the implementation of precision medicine. And this is, for example, a game, we call it Genome Heroes, Abtal al-Genome, where basically students, and you can download those, whether on Android or on App Store. It's downloadable, and we hope that more students around the Arab world and even beyond will download this. This game, educational, but it's also fun for the students to answer questions. They learn and they get some fun around basics of genomics. On the postgraduate level, we're still on the human capacity now, and I mean all the way from those games to actually launching very important postgraduate programs in collaboration with Qatar University and Hamad bin Khalifa University, one in genetic counseling and the other in genomics and precision medicine. Again, if you produce all this amount of data, if you want to be a pioneer in the implementation of precision medicine, you need more of those graduates leaving those universities and then incorporated in the healthcare system and the research ecosystem to basically deliver the promise. We involve everyone. Everyone in Qatar is involved. All research community, all research institutes, all universities, all hospitals. We make it a goal for us to get everyone on board. Whenever we sequence few genomes, well, first 3,000 genomes, we make it available for the researchers. Then 6,000 genomes, we call other researchers to have a look at that. Soon we will release, inshallah, around from 25 to 30,000 whole genomes. Again, we bring the researchers together. We encourage them to form multidisciplinary teams and multi-institute teams, and we give them access to the data and encourage them. And we sometimes even fund them, as you will see in this slide. We partnered with the main research funding agency in Qatar called the Qatar National Research Fund, QNRF. We've launched 7 cycles. I should update this slide. We are now preparing PPM 8. We call it Pathway to Precision Medicine. It's basically a grant where we fund researchers with up to $700,000 for 2-3 years to have a look at our data and mine it for all sorts of different purposes. We also have assembled what we call the Qatar Research Consortium, Qatar Genome, Research Consortium. In this consortium, we actually literally involved every single molecular biologist and geneticist in the country, and we encourage them even to invite their international partners around. In the first phase, we divided them into 10 groups, each group focusing on fundamental questions. Most of these groups already delivered, of phase 1 of the consortium, delivered in very high impact fundamental papers that made us now getting ready to release or to launch the second phase of that consortium. These are some of the papers that were published. This one, basically the largest Middle East genome-wide association paper in Nature Communications by Omar and Karsten. This is another paper from that consortium in phase 1 on basically the population substructure. And if you can see here, the column on the left, it was color-coded, the genotypes. This figure beautifully proves what we've already known, that we are underrepresented in this in the genomic database internationally. All the other columns, color, they represent different ethnicities from different countries. The colors we found here in our study are hardly seen there. This blue and this red and this turquoise, it's hardly there, which proves that the Arab genomics are largely underrepresented in other databases. One interesting side note here for those who are also interested in history like me, well, you can see them in other places. You can see a little bit of red and blue some other places. And if you follow those traces, you can see them that they coincide with our history and how people immigrated, especially in post Islam eras, when Arabs flew out of the Arabian Peninsula, went to, for example, Southern Europe and then Latin America. And you can see that some of our genes, some of the Arab genes, are found as far as South America, and my story, and in Sicily and southern Italy, and even in Spain, which basically coincides with the historical narrative or the journey our ancestors took out of the Arabian Peninsula. History aside, back to science, more papers. This one is a comprehensive insight into ACMG genes on the Arab populations, and it wasn't done. These are the ACMG. Of course, the list is increasing now, but you can see these are actionable, medically actionable mutations. And these are very important to have for any society, to see the disease burden and how much prevention you can do, and predictive or prediction. This is a very powerful tool clinically to screen in any population. This paper at the Lancet Oncology took actually the cover of that issue. You can see that Arab and this DNA, basically they were not only accepting our paper, but celebrating that they finally have more data from other ethnicities on, this paper basically on familial cancer causing mutations in the Arab populations. This one on the landscape of pharmacogenomic mutations. What are the pharmacogenomic variants that are prevalent in these populations, led by Jitesh, again published in Genome Medicine, a very fundamental paper for anyone who wants to, the background information, the foundational information to start anything nationally for pharmacogenomic implementation. Another important paper by Dr. Khalid Fakhro on the Mendelian disorders burden, how much, what is the real burden, which variants are more being circulated in our populations, our highly consanguineous populations. So you see more papers. This one on polygenic risk scores, and that's a very important, by Muhammad Saad and Dr. Jassim Swedi. These are very important beginnings to have our own polygenic risk scores. And for those who don't know what polygenic risk scores are, I can assure you, you will be hearing more and more about them in the future. Basically, rare disease, Mendelian disorders, as we've seen in the past slide, you're born with a mutation that is highly penetrative, and you will see the phenotype definitely. But most of the complex disorders that are making the real burden on healthcare systems are polygenic in their nature. So these PRSs, polygenic risk scores, try to give you a score of risk for an individual, and then you can prioritize those in preventive programs and other screening programs to do. And polygenic risk scores also sometimes take into consideration other environmental and dietary elements. So it is basically not enough to import polygenic risk scores for Scandinavian populations and implement it somewhere else in Asia. It doesn't work. So you have to calculate your own polygenic risk scores on your own populations. And that's what we've started to do here for heart disease. More accomplishments here on the research side. When COVID came upon us, we were ready with huge infrastructure for sequencing and genomics, and we all came together again to represent the region. And for example, this Nature paper, which was looking at what genes makes a person more susceptible to severe disease compared with another guy who would get COVID but escape asymptomatically, no symptoms whatsoever, as if he didn't have the virus. So we were the only country from outside Northern America and Western Europe to be part of this consortium and represent, as I said, the region. As I said, it's really important. And actually, out of the in the first paper, out of the 15 genes, I think, or variants that were discovered to be associated, 2 of them wouldn't have been possible, we've told, by the consortium if we didn't contribute with our own cohort to this consortium. Again, this shows you of the importance of genomic diversity, not only for us in the region, but for the whole world. More and more papers. Laith Abu Raddad, mashallah, and his team published 14 New England Journal of Medicine, plus Nature Medicine, plus JAMA and other top-notch journals. Because again, the whole research ecosystem and healthcare providers in Qatar came together during COVID to provide insight, not only for decision makers during COVID in Qatar, but even some of these papers were world first. Yani, a new variant emerges, you need to sequence those variants, and then, for example, look at the efficacy of the Novartis or the Moderna vaccine against those new variants. Some of the first papers worldwide were coming from Qatar. It's because we had the data, we had the infrastructure, and we enabled the authorities enabled everyone to be part of this team and quickly respond to emerging needs during COVID. That was all to tell you that how useful it is on the research side to have such large data sets. And as I said at the beginning of my talk, we now feel that we've produced enough data, we're confident enough that we can progress into and focus onto clinical implementation. So this is what the QBHI signals, Qatar Precision Health Institute, which is the merger of Qatar Biobank and Qatar Genome. We will continue to produce data and support research, but we will also be focusing more on clinical implementation. And how do you do that? There's no standard formula. Whenever we talk to other programs similar to us around the world, they tell you, this transition from research to implementation, it's not standard if you talk large scale. So we thought that the best way to do it is through these pilots. And I will tell you now some of these pilots, and I'll tell you, and being surrounded by many pharmacists today, pharmacogenomics is one of the most, the best results to start with to show worth of precision medicine in clinical practice. If you want to convince healthcare providers, if you want to convince decision makers that this will work, you go for pharmacogenomics. You select your pilots very quickly, and you show them that you will not only give the exact dose for the right patient, and you will avoid side effects, but you will also save a lot of money, because pharmacogenomics do have this eventually on the long run a lot of savings by describing the right drug, the right dose to the right patient. So we chose our pilots very carefully. The first, most of them led by Dr. Rami Abdul Latif. Statins from our tens of thousands of participants. This is a preemptive study. We identified people at risk from our cohort, from our biobank participants, and we said that those guys are either already on statins or about to be given some one of the or the other of those statins. And we know that some of them, because we've done whole genome sequencing with them, might carry a mutation that will basically put them at risk of serious side effects. So we go and approach those and tell them, look, you might want to go to the doctor, and you might want to check if you need any statins. And by the way, if he says yes, be careful, you have this mutation that might cause you this side effect. So you better choose one over the other of those available statins. That's one example of a preemptive pharmacogenomic intervention. The other one was around clopidogrel, and the third one was on warfarin. This is a classical example. In those two examples, we have actually introduced something in the system whereby the physician requesting this blood thinning agent, the system can tell him that, oh, you're prescribing the wrong drug or the wrong dose. So he will get that alarm automatically in the system. But these are pilots. And of course, we are now considering scaling them up into routine practice. And all these pilots also give us some encouraging results that for many cases, we were finding that we are cutting the hospitalization rate from 7 days sometimes to by 50% to 3 days, because people undergoing those surgeries are able to get the right dose or right INR being optimized more quickly based on genetic information. We do have basically an FDA-approved genetic test just next to the operating theater, and the results goes back to the physician within 15 to 30 minutes. Other pharmacogenomic pilots on breast cancer neoadjuvant chemotherapies. So these are 3 or 4, and we have more pharmacogenomic pilots in the pipeline. Another implementation project was related to BRCA1, BRCA2 carriers. As I said, we have thousands and thousands of individuals giving us their samples, and we have their own genomes there sequenced, and we know if they are carriers of life-threatening actionable mutations. So we started saying, why don't we identify those and give them some payback actually for their generous donation of the samples, telling them that you are at risk of basically breast cancer at an early stage. So what we did is that we started with 6,000 genomes. We identified dozens of ladies carrying, and some of them were males actually carrying those mutations. We called them back. We confirmed, took another sample, confirmed the results, and told them, look, you are at risk of familial forms of breast cancer, and you might be in need of starting screening at an earlier age. And some of them actually went there and enrolled in those screening programs. Some of them brought 17 members of their families, and many of those were actually, or some of those were at early stages of breast and ovarian cancers. Some of them went very successful, straightforward surgeries that could basically save their life. When that pilot was well received, we have now ambitious plans to replicate this BRCA1, BRCA2 familial breast cancer incidental reporting of actionable mutation into the whole list of the American College of Medical Genetics. We are talking now to the main healthcare provider, Hamad Medical Corporation, and we might be, inshallah, launching this very ambitious preventive genomics program nationally. More and more of these clinical pilots led by Dr. Wadha Al-Muftah. In this case, we work with the Primary Health Corporation here in Qatar on 2 programs, the Smart Health Check and the Wellness Program. And we are giving them a lot of genomic data related to food metabolism, weight management, response to exercise, metabolic disorders, and diabetes. And those patients or participants enrolled in those national programs are telling us that it's really very useful to get more genomic data, not just hemoglobin A1C, not just CBCs, and they are bringing more and more of their families to receive those reports. One other implementation project is what we call the CHIP project. It's an array project. To cut a long story short, we have produced this chip as a cheap alternative to whole genome sequencing. If you don't want to do whole genome sequencing because it's more expensive, if cost goes down, you still have very complex bioinformatics analysis downstream waiting for you. This chip, we put tens of thousands of different mutations and variants that are related to the Qatari and Arab population, and it costs way less than the whole genome sequencing, and it does it is also easier to interpret and draw results. And we are now in the process of launching, we call it the Pan-Arab Array. This Pan-Arab Array includes a lot of the SNPs and variants that are very relevant to the Arab populations that we've already sequenced, as I said. And we hope that this will empower the research community with outside Qatar, those who cannot afford whole genome sequencing or think that they don't actually need for their purpose. They can use, hopefully, this array. More and more pilot studies, but I will just finish with those results from those surveys that we've conducted a few years ago. Those surveys, one of them is a public survey, and the other one is a healthcare professional survey. In those surveys, we were asking basically how willing or how intrigued the population are in receiving a lot of data about their genomes. And we were asking the professionals of how prepared they are and what do they think about precision medicine or precision health in general before scaling up all these pilots and spending all that money. The results, so one of them is published, but the results were very encouraging, and I'll just show you some of those results conducted by an independent surveyor. People are intrigued, and there are always people who don't want to know about their genes. But 80% of the people we survey said, I do want to know more about my genetic makeup. And the reason could be because I have a patient, a relative, a family member who's suffering from this, that, and others were just because they are so health conscious and they are intrigued by knowing more about their genomes. There was so many other questions, but for me, at those days, this was the most important number we had from the survey. It's that when you ask people, are you willing to donate a sample for a large national genome project, and you might not get direct results or benefits immediately from this donation, and this donation will contribute long-term to genomic research and might eventually lead to something good in the healthcare system that maybe you later in life or your sons will receive. 71% of them said yes, which is very assuring that the population is behind us in this national project. The professionals, when we surveyed hundreds and hundreds of physicians, pharmacists, nurses, and biomedical scientists in the healthcare system, 97% of them said that they believe precision health is the way forward. Is that one size fits all medical healthcare is not the way forward, and we have to tailor healthcare around people's own genes. So yes, the healthcare professionals do believe that this is the way forward. Of course, when we ask them, are you willing to train more and enroll more in education, more training programs? Again, overwhelmingly, they said, yes, we are ready to do that. And by this high note, saying that we have the support of the healthcare system of professionals and the population, I end up by saying that we're so proud of what we've done here during the past decade. I have countless of people around me to thank, hundreds of people, not only belonging to Qatar Genome or Qatar Biobank, now Qatar Precision Health Institute, but everyone in Qatar and their international partners. This couldn't have been possible if not all those from the different institutes, whether it's Sidra, whether it's Hamad bin Khalifa University, QBRI, QCRI, Qatar University, HMC, Ministry of Public Health, Cornell Qatar, everyone. We consider this as our extended family, and this is a collective effort for so many people. Well, thank you very much, and I'm ready to have any of your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Ismail, for this great presentation. It was really very impressive. We are so proud to have these efforts done in one of the Arab countries, and it's really it was really very impressive. And we are looking forward to more and more of the outcomes of these great initiatives. So I start with my own questions, if you don't mind, until the audience write their questions in the Q&A box, please. So I think we have a couple of questions, but if you don't mind, could you explain to us what type of data are you returning to patients who are in the Qatar Genome, who are participants of Qatar Genome? What type of data and to what extent they are having control of their own data?
To be honest, in the first, the biggest part of our operation, the last 10 years, our participants are so generous. They signed a consent basically that says we're not obliged to give them any genomic data back. Mm-hmm. They get the blood test, they get ECG, they get other things, they get bone density, and they get referred. But for genomic data, the consent initially was saying we don't have to give them back. And then when we were mature enough, we collected enough data, we took the initiative to give them some data back. We started testing with the BRCA1, BRCA2, how would they respond to it? The response was great. Mm-hmm. And so now we started giving them back. So initially, we didn't give them back any genomic data in return. They were giving other clinical data and they were happy with it. But we have now voluntarily decided to pay back and give them more, and we're expanding, as I said in my slides.
So what about I guess they have in the consent there was that they are willing to receive the incidental findings.
We changed the consent. When we decided to give them back, we did change the consent, of course, and to allow us to give them back, yes.
And there was an option to, if they want, they opt to not to receive the incidental findings.
Yes, they can opt not to receive. They can opt even to withdraw from the whole study. This is all available, yes.
And if they opt not to receive the incidental findings, the data is still, you have the right to keep the data for research purposes, as long as they have.
Exactly.
Thank you. So what about you have mentioned that all the data that is collected is open for researchers in Qatar to work to bring more new objectives and more research ideas to use this data. Is it open as well for researchers from other Arab countries if they have collaboration with Qatar, or it's open with some conditions?
So usually the standard way is that you have to have a collaborator in Qatar. So if you identify someone in Qatar who works on a research in any of those institutes working on something similar, then you join forces and you submit. Well, he should be there to submit that, and you will be part of the team and will have access. Yes, we are now reconsidering our access policies, and we are considering if we can give directly the access to international partners. But so far, the practice is, yes, you can have access, but you need to have a partner in Qatar.
So as you have mentioned that we are here a lot of pharmacists. So what can you see the role of pharmacists in this precision medicine future we are building? So what do you think the role of pharmacists in this?
Pharmacogenomics is the example we all bring when we talk about implementation. And of course, everyone is talking about implementation now. We cannot just indulge in research forever. We have to show value at the clinical end, and pharmacogenomics is a big issue here, and a lot of what we do, actually, Dr. Rania is a pharmacist. Our collaborators in the healthcare system, researchers, are also pharmacists. The lady working on the genotyping assay next to the operation theater is a pharmacist. So this whole thing is handled by originally trained pharmacists with some interest in genomics. The other thing is on pharmacoeconomics. Oh, sorry, health economics of this whole thing. And I've discovered that you guys are the most relevant to that. Whenever I bump into a health economics expert, I'll find that originally he's trained as a pharmacist for some reason, apparently.
Yeah,
so,
because we are experts in money and economics.
Yes. So that's one other important aspect of our work, wherein we interact a lot with them. And of course, then the big pharma industry. I mean, there are three things that we are interested in, and three ecosystems that we operate within: research ecosystem, then implementation with clinicians, and the third avenue, I didn't speak about that because that's something we are very keen now to launch, is partnership with the industry for biomarker discovery, for drug development, for all sorts of things. So yes, our dear pharmacists can be heavily involved in all this.
Yeah, good to know. So I'll move now to some of the audience questions. How does Qatar's Precision Health Initiative, this is a question from Hind from Morocco, balance the rapid technological advancements in genomics with the ethical responsibility of ensuring that these innovations don't widen healthcare disparities within the region?
As I said, we have, I think, 25%, slightly more, maybe in the coming years, have been non-Qataris and of Arab origin. And as I said early on, we knew that we will sequence enough Qataris and then quickly move in parallel to sequence others from the region, because we felt that there is a lot of underrepresentation, and we took on our shoulders this responsibility of representing the whole region. As I said, we have samples from Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, the Levant, Iraq, the Arabian Peninsula, you name it. We have representatives from all these countries. We have incorporated those in the Pan-Arab array. I hope it will be ready soon for researchers who want to use it from all around the Arab world. The 8,000 genomes belonging to those and people from all these countries will inshallah be released, I hope, before the end of the year for the research community. So we have realized
it's contributing to like lessen the disparities between different populations, I guess.
Yeah. For example, even in Qatar now we since the question is from Morocco, when we started collecting Arab samples, we knew that we have more from say the Levant or the Gulf. Now we are actively enriching for samples from North Africa. If you're from North Africa, we want to balance those, so we will get a priority to be sequenced.
Yeah, so interesting. So Iqra, I am not sure from where he is. He's saying, as a clinical pharmacist, how can I take a degree in genomic studies? Or maybe are there any availabilities in Qatar for these degrees?
There are different degrees at master's and PhD levels that were launched in Qatar. You can look at Hamad bin Khalifa University and Qatar University. Those two universities have launched several programs related to this. And you can be a pharmacist, you can be a biomedical scientist, you can be a doctor, you can be anything to be enrolled. And there are also some courses available in other places around the world.
Yeah, sure. Anas is asking, do you collect twin data, family data? Do you screen for communicable diseases?
Communicable diseases, the main effort was around COVID. For twins, yes, we have just signed an agreement by Qatar University to support a twin registry. And we will be sequencing all those twins, inshallah. We are providing all the support, financial and technical.
Interesting. Noor Break is asking, thank you very much, Dr. Saeed Ismail, for delivering such an excellent webinar. It is so impressive to know about Qatar Biobank. I have a couple of questions. First question, is Qatar Biobank part of the international 100,000 plus cohort consortium, IHCC, which includes biobanks like UK Biobank and Japan Biobank?
Yes, that's a quick answer. Yes, we are.
Okay. The second question, I came across information online that Qatar Biobank is a population-based cohort study. I am curious if the approach taken by Qatar Biobank is similar to the Birmingham Heart Disease study or more recent longitudinal studies like the Canadian Partnership for Tomorrow's Health, CanPath. For example, does Qatar Biobank also use a prospective cohort model collecting data through questionnaires that focus on personal and family health history, medication use, lifestyle, environmental factors? So is this the case?
So Qatar Biobank is a population cohort for people are above above 18, and it's a longitudinal study. And we were receiving apparently healthy individuals, but now we are capping that cohort around 10% of the population, and then we are focusing more into disease cohorts. So gradually it will move from being a population biobank into a disease biobank, inshallah.
Interesting. Mustafa, I'm interested to know more about the internship opportunities for family undergraduates in Jordan University. I'm not sure if this is the place to ask this question.
Yeah, you can ask colleagues there, inshallah, and I'm sure there will be chances.
So Noor also has another last question. Could you elaborate on how Qatar Biobank is contributing to advancing health research both in the Arab world and globally?
As I said, in the Arab world, yes, as I show you in those papers, we still have a lot to do, but we are one of the main contributors to genomic data related to Arab ethnicities in the public domain and now in the literature, alhamdulillah. And internationally, I think this is also important. I mean, you cannot, there is plenty to learn from data coming from this part of the world. And if you want direct example, it's COVID. As I said, in COVID, we were producing world first result here, or led by MOPH and Laith and others. So if you have the right infrastructure, if you have the resources and you put them together, yes, you can do it.
Excellent. Zubair is asking, does the Institute provide any online study or training opportunities for students or professionals residing outside Qatar?
No, not, but as QBHI or Biobank or Genome, no, but there are the other educational institutes in Qatar. I'm sure they might be offering such courses online.
So very important question. What about insurance coverage? I know there's an act of Western countries to protect patients against discrimination prevention. This, I think the attendee is referring to GINA and all the regulations to protect the information from reaching to the insurance companies or third party. Yeah. Are there parallel regulations in Qatar?
We don't have that yet, but this is a very good point. And indeed, some countries are proactively putting regulations in place. And I am sure that this will follow in so many other places. As the genome becomes more affordable, more people will have their genomic data available. And I am positive that insurance companies could have and it's something to do with this, but regulators should be one step ahead and put that this is a very important step. Not only insurance, but also the other bioethics related to this field, and there are very interesting arguments that we could put forward. It's not just the insurance and the cost. So many things. For example, the actionable mutations example that I brought. Was initiated by a conversation with an Islamic bioethicist, Dr. Muhammad Ghali. In the West, anywhere else in the world, العقد شريعة المتعاقدين, and the contract between us is the consent. The consent says that I don't have to give them back any genomic information. So in conversing with Dr. Muhammad, he said, but if you know about a life-threatening actionable mutation, then you have to tell him. Even if your consent doesn't oblige you to do that, I don't care about your consent, he said. And this is one thing that shows you that even with the bioethics, you have to have your own set of rules as that will correlate with your religion, your culture, and all that. وأعطاني المثال, he gave us the example is that if you're praying and you see someone drowning, you have to break your prayer and you have to save him. So then I was left, because we have tens of thousands of genomes and we know a lot about those participants, and some of them is, as I said, life-threatening, and second, actionable, meaning you can do something about it to prevent it or to treat it. So when I was
it's a very huge burden, ethical burden.
Yeah, so it's a huge burden on us. And then I started talking to other clinicians around me, and they said that, some of them said, oh, you don't want to overwhelm me with all those thousands of variants and thousands of patients. Others were good enough and said, bring them in, let me know about them. So we started this BRCA one. Science is established, the clinicians were ready to receive them. Now it's successful, we thought. So my point here to make is that regulators and bioethicists have to be ready and understand what we do and put those regulations and ethics for us.
And stay ahead, and also considering the cultural differences and the uniqueness of our culture. So I don't want to take more of your time. Actually, we have more questions, but I think we have reached the end of this webinar. We are really very grateful to all the time you have dedicated for us from this day, and we are very proud to have you with us today. And please accept our all the thanks from me and from the audience for answering all these questions and for being patient with us.
لا بالعكس, it's such an honor. Thank you very much for the invitation, Dr. Zain and Dr. Osama, and all those who attended today. It was really a pleasure to be with you all.
Thank you. The pleasure was ours indeed.
Thank
you all, great audience, and hope to see you soon in the next webinar.
Inshallah.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
مع السلامة.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.